Welcome to the Dog Nerd Show, where we geek out over our best friends. I'm Megan.
And I'm Michael, and this is a show about all things dog.
Hey everybody, today we talk about the big, the strong, the Rottweiler.
Also, jack of all trades dog.
Yeah, I did not know this, but these guys are an ancient breed.
They are. They're from the Roman Empire.
Yeah, so according to my research on the American Kennel Club site, they were Roman drover, ancestors of Roman drover dogs. And I just always assume Rottweiler, they come from Germany, they're just a German breed. Well, they came from the Roman drover dogs, and they got the name Rottweilers because after the collapse of the Roman Empire, they were working in the cattle town of Rottweiler, moving herds to pasture. Right. And they would protect the butchers' goods from bandits and rustlers, is what it says. So they earned the name Rottweiler Metzgerhund, or butcher's dog of Rottweiler. So, and then once it says here that once the railroad cattle cars came into play, Rottweilers weren't needed to move cattle anymore, so they were used in other things like police work and protection work, search and rescue. There were Rottweilers that did search and rescue at both the Oklahoma City bombing center and the World Trade Center. So I did not know that they did search and rescue either.
Yeah, so they do a lot of, so there's different types of tracking. IPO, I think, is one of them. I'm not sure, but it's different types of training they do, and they do tracking as part of their training program. And these guys are really good at finding a human being.
That's cool. I mean, I know all dogs can do search and rescue, but you typically see like labs and Goldens, and I've seen some smaller spaniels. But yeah, so Rottweilers, like you said, they really are a jack of all trades. They can do a lot. They are typically aloof around strangers because they're going to protect their family. Their family are their people. Apparently, now you Rottweiler people can set us straight, but apparently they're kind of goofy and silly when they're around their family. So the personality comes out when they are with their own.
Yeah, I agree. They are such beautiful dogs, and I've seen photos, old timey photos where they're pulling wagons on a farm, or it's incredible that we think of the Rottweiler, especially if you're our age. You think of the Rottweiler as the 1980s, 1990s, guard dog, or
They got a bad rap in the 80s. I think it was 80s, 90s. 80s, 90s. I think German Shepherds were 80s, Rottweilers were 90s. They got a bad rap for being aggressive dogs, and we all know here at the Dog Nerd Show that that's all about how an animal is raised. Yeah. So, yeah. We have a great interview today. Really excited about learning about this breed. They are probably not a breed for the first time dog parent, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. I think this is a dog that you have to have some sort of experience with, and we'll find out in the interview, but training, and when you're done training, you need to train some more. So it's very important that you go research this breed and meet this breed. But no, I would not say it's a first-time dog owner's dog.
And I would not say that I don't think I would be the right person for this breed, because you do have to, like Michael said, training. So we talked with Sarah, and Sarah actually runs a Instagram page for her pack, which is Spoiled Rotties. I think you can find them on Facebook as well. She gives the details at the end of the interview. But she has a pack of Rottweilers and a pug. So you'll hear all about her experience with Rottweilers and how she manages such a large pack of Rottweilers. And be sure to stay tuned till the end, because we are going to do our audience shout out and highlight one of you.
Awesome. So without further ado, let's move on to Sarah.
So we are here with Sarah, who is a an amazing dog mom, and I found Sarah on Instagram and her incredible page, Spoiled Rotties, which that name is just awesome.
I can't believe it wasn't taken, Megan.
Right?
I
Yeah.
was
I mean,
shocked.
it's just like it's so good. I love stuff like that, wordplay, and yeah, good for you for getting it because it's awesome.
Thank
Um,
you.
so we were just talking before we started recording that while you have spoiled Rotties, you have an imposter in the pack who is a pug named Wanda, and she's gorgeous. Um,
Thank you.
so tell us just how you came to be a mom to all these wonderful dogs, and then we'll dive into what we need to know about the Rottweiler.
Yes, well, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with y'all today. We started our journey with Rottweilers almost 10 years ago. We have one male in our pack. He'll be 10 in September. And we say that he is the most gracious teacher of any dog that we've ever met. We made all our mistakes on Ethos, and he and I have been together for 5 years by ourselves before we had my husband or any other dogs. And so there was a lot of love going on there and not a lot of discipline. And so he weighs 144 pounds,
Wow.
and he was the leader, hands down the leader. It took a series of very hard conversations for me, not for him, by a very good trainer in Annapolis, Maryland. And basically what he shared with us was that the Rottweiler breed will either follow their leader when they trust them, or they will lead you. And so in our instance, for Ethos and I, he didn't really believe that I could lead. And frankly, I don't know that I believed I could at the point either. So Ethos is where we started. He has been with me since he was 8 weeks old. And then we have Maggie, who is 7, estimated 7. She is where we really started our journey with rescue. She's our first failed foster. There will be a theme here. And she was an emergency transit for the rescue we work with. Someone had taken her puppies and then discarded her on the side of a farm road. So the Good Samaritan had actually seen them toss her out on the farm road. And there are a lot of things about Rottweilers that people caution you about, for a new Rottweiler that you don't really know, putting your face next to them. All of those things when you're in a rescue scenario are things that they advise you against. So everything that they tell you not to do, the first day that we met Maggie, happened just because she was so exhausted. She rolled over on her back in my lap and went to sleep. So she did a 12-day intake. That's the normal time that the rescue takes them into the vet. And so she had a series of kind of complications from her spay and wasn't responding well to the anesthesia and then coming back up out of anesthesia. So we spent some time and decided that we would foster her. And when she came home, she'd never been in a house, didn't know what running water was scared of the hose, wasn't really sure she liked Ethos. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And our integration process for Maggie was about 10 days that they were in the house before they actually interacted to keep everybody safe. And then we have Fern and Freya, they're litter mates, siblings. They were also an emergency call from the rescue at 2 days old. Their mother had most likely, we don't really know 100% of the story, but their mother had been taken and someone had her in the backyard. So she gave birth, a new time mom, very nervous about the birth, unsure, there was no idyllic whelping box or space for her. She was out in Texas summer. It's actually Fern and Freya's birthday tomorrow, so they'll be 4. And it's about 100 degrees here in Texas. So when the warden came to get them, the Nisa, which is their mother, reacted very aggressively and destroyed one of the puppies. And immediately they separate the litter from the mom, which causes a significant amount of challenges because you've got to get the colostrum into them and they weren't nursing and all of these things. And my husband and I didn't really know anything other than there were these 2 little teeny bobblehead puppies that the rescue said, hey, could you guys maybe bottle feed some puppies? And if my mom were also on the line, she would laugh because I called and I said, oh, there are like 6 puppies. We're thinking of taking them all. And she said, what? What? You don't know anything about puppies? I said, we'll be fine. So we ended up just taking the girls, and unfortunately, the other 4 puppies didn't survive. So the girls are kind of miracle babies.
Yeah.
Their mom is a registered service dog in Colorado now. So we adopted her out as well. And it's been really fun to kind of watch them grow up because they don't know anything different than us and Maggie and Ethos. And then maybe 2 Christmases ago, the week before Christmas, another emergent call came in for an aggressive 10-week-old Rottweiler puppy, which doesn't really kind of go together.
Yeah.
And they needed transport for her, but they had a foster and all these things. And my husband isn't allowed to go to see the puppies alone. So I said, well, listen, I'll go with you. Okay, we'll go together. And I should have known from the way she bounded toward him in her little 10-week-old, like ears that are too big and legs that are all gangly and just super sweet eyes. So the day of our Christmas party, she was not getting along with the older Rottweilers at her foster house. And the rescue owner called him and said, there's a problem, James. Please, can you just come and pick up this puppy? And so he said, yes, I'll go. And I said, we have 50 guests arriving in 2 hours to make Christmas cookies. Okay. So, and our own dogs aren't here for our guests with children. So you want to bring a new puppy home? And he said, yes, I will put a red sweater on her and we will pass her around. That was his answer. And that is what he did. And I should have known at that moment that she was never leaving. So that made
had
5.
a sweater on in the plan. Yeah.
Holding on to her like a baby. So that was Scarlett. Scarlett came and she'll be 2 in September. She's our youngest Rottweiler. And then there was a conversation that happened. We also have farm animals. So we also have 2 horses and 2 goats. And a lot of our friends have big dogs and small dogs. So then this conversation about maybe we should have a small dog and maybe we should get a Chihuahua. And I said, I don't really know anything about Chihuahuas. I'm not, and we've been chased by several in the neighborhood with our Rottweiler pack. So I said, Ethos had a pug brother when he started out. So why don't we at least entertain that breed? I know something about it. It doesn't feel so strange. And so my husband was a little resistant. And the short version is Wanda came to stay with us because she was a breeder surrender. That we had said, no, thank you. The inn is closed.
Yeah.
And we got a phone call from the breeder that said, I really need to get rid of this dog. Could you take her?
Oh.
And I said to my husband, I don't really know what this means, but I feel compelled that we should take this dog. Okay. So the breeder, again in air quotes, handed us a wet pug with no collar, leash, harness, nothing. And it was almost opposite day. So everything the breeder said about Wanda was the opposite. So that she was crate trained. Nope. That she was friendly with dogs and other animals. Absolutely not. She was dog aggressive. She was human aggressive. And admittedly, in our rescue journey, it's one of the only times that I said, I don't know that we're equipped to handle this. Because we have a very, very mature pack and a very established hierarchy and trained. And then we are entering in this 13-pound ball of and so she's been really fun because her progression has happened more quickly because she has a lot of really good teachers that are very tolerant. And then also who remind her quickly that we don't play like that. That isn't fun. I don't want you biting me in the nose.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you think it was a backyard breeder type of situation. So by crate training, probably stuck in a pen her whole entire life.
Yes. Well, she came to us with a name of Athena, and we took the first 72 hours just to decompress, right? So she was she wouldn't respond to anything. So she wouldn't respond to voice. She didn't respond to her name. She wasn't really sure she wanted food. And she would eat a little bit, but she would wait until everyone else was out of the room. She was making these big circles in her little crate to get out.
Mm.
So she was just very off for the first, I'd say 3.5 days. And then when she realized certainly none of the dogs were going to bother her and we weren't going to harm her, she kind of decompressed a little. It took her probably to walk on the leash with the big dogs. It probably took her 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah, just to feel comfortable. She had some pretty bad scarring on each of the bottom areas of her ears from nips.
Mm.
So that's not ideal.
But that's
But
pretty impressive. I mean, I would have expected a little bit longer, but having so, like you said, so many good teachers, they do kind of just follow the lead. They find their place and they follow it, and it's amazing what they can do and how they can teach each other.
yeah, we're very proud of our Rottweilers for that one because she was, whew.
Well, let's talk about Rottweilers. So, they're definitely a breed that has been, maligned over the years. Was it the 90s, would you say, when they were sort
Yes,
of the pit bulls of the decade? And,
yes.
they're beautiful, strong working dogs. And in doing research for this episode, I had no idea just how ancient a breed they are. I mean, ancient. So,
Ancient.
tell us a little bit about the breed, and then, we'll discuss things that people that are looking to get a Rottweiler should consider.
Yeah, so you hit on it earlier when you said that they're an ancient breed. And I think that if you look at the progression of the breed from being war dogs to butcher's dogs to family dogs, you see where the breeders actually have bifurcated. So you have a group of breeders still left in the United States and certainly international that breed to the guard mentality. So they have a lineage that is guard specific. And when I say guard specific, they want to do some of the bite work. They want to do all of that type of training. And that's very important that the qualities and the traits within the Rottweilers can yield that kind of an animal. So that's one area. And then you have this other area of folks that just love the breed. They think that they're majestic. They realize how super sensitive that they are and how family oriented they become in the right atmosphere. And they don't want to breed those large guard qualities and characteristics because what they're looking for is a pet.
Mhm.
So when you're dealing with a working class breed, and you have those two distinctions, I think one of the most important thing a potential Rottweiler owner could do is really research the lineage. So
Mhm.
if you want a pet, you need to be clear about that with the breeder. And if you're going down the road of rescue, you have to be prepared that you're going to get a guard dog.
Mhm.
And even in our own pack, we have 5 very different animals. And we cannot use the same training modalities for one that we would use for all. So each of them have something different. And I think that that's really indicative of this type of working breed dog. So they're big. On average, the females are between 75 and 90 pounds. And then the males are, I think it's 97 or something to 120. My ethos is much bigger than that at 140. But the average female is not that much bigger.
Mhm.
So one of the things you have to consider is if you have a dog that is a guard breed and you are a 150-pound female, what is your plan to work on that leadership? And then it's not a one-stop. I took them to the pet care, like
Yeah.
I took them to Petco doggy beginning
Yeah.
classes and we're one and done. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
And it's okay if that's the type of dog you want, but that's not the type of dog you're getting.
Yeah.
With a Rottweiler. So because of the level of guard that is built into the breed characteristics, I think it's super important to understand that there are two camps,
Yeah.
and one is a guard breed and one is a family breed. And the only way that you're truly going to know that is if you have a really reputable breeder,
Mhm.
and that you're not even going to know it by seeing the dogs.
Yeah.
Now, what I would suggest is, if you're thinking about the breed for you and your family, is that you go and you watch the breeder train, because most of the breeders that we are friendly with train their rots.
Mhm.
And so maybe it is in bite work. You should probably see that, because that's what the dog is capable of.
Yep.
And then some of them will train high level obedience and agility. So what I would say, I mentioned it earlier about sensitive.
Mhm.
If I change the intonation in my voice, I don't even have to raise my voice. The entire pack is looking like, oh, what is happening?
Mhm.
Very sensitive. If I raise my voice, or it's clear that I'm dissatisfied with something, there's an immediate response, like, oh, mom, everybody stops. And so I think that because they were so highlighted as negative in the 90s, and to be really transparent, they are not for novice owners. And if you are a novice owner and you're going to get a Rottweiler, you must train them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is one of the questions we always ask is this a good breed for a first time dog parent? And no, it does not seem like you've got to be pretty hardcore, because like you said, it's a lot of training, a lot of training. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't, you've got to know what you're doing. And being that they are very intelligent, right? That, that even adds to the difficulty in training.
And stubborn. Okay. So super smart and super stubborn. So most people have that friend that is so intellectually high in terms of the way that they interact with other humans, but they're super stubborn if they get something in their mind. That's like a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
So a Rottweiler, if you ask a Rottweiler that you don't have an established relationship to do something he or she does not want to do, there are going to be more times than you would like to count that he or she will look at you, and you can see it in their face. They will look at you, they'll consider it as an option, and they'll choose to do whatever they would like to do.
Yeah.
And so I think, and it's not with malice. It's just they have their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And your agenda and their agenda, you guys have to be on the same page. So one of the things that has made the ability to have multiple Rottweilers very successful in our house is our expectations are super clear. So we don't change them. We don't deviate from them. There's no special treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody gets set up for success, including my husband and I.
I was
Right?
gonna say, you guys have to be on the same page, which I think is probably the most important thing, because, if one of you is like, let him bark, it's a problem.
It is a problem. And it's interesting, right? Because one of the things about the breed, when you talk about characteristics, is they often don't bark. So they often do not give you a warning.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we tell folks that come in and are interested in Rottweilers, who will foster or perhaps have just adopted, and a Rottweiler will give a growl, that is, so obviously we don't want the growling,
Yeah.
but we do want the warning, because most of the time you don't get that.
Wow.
You get 0 to 180, and you're on the other side of 180, like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
So we don't have a tremendous amount of barking, just in general in the house. We have worked hard about the activity at thresholds. So if you open our front door, you're not going to have 600 pounds of Rottweiler run out, because that would be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And what I will say is, although they don't bark, they will alert.
Okay.
And so that's something about the guard breed that was new for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain difference between a bark and an alert. And at our house, we have two that alert, and it's a different noise. and the whole pack activates. So we can have half inside and half outside. And if an alert sound comes, everybody is moving to the sound, and they are going full steam ahead until they figure out whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
And then if they need you, they come back in like, oh, I really need a human. Come on.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I think, with working dogs in general, ours being terriers, they're smart and they're stubborn because they're meant to go work, right? They're not meant to get direction from the human. They're meant to go off independently and work. And that does present challenges. Then you have a dog that's the size of a Rottweiler, and it's more challenges than it is for a terrier. So, I think if people understand when they're getting a dog that, put the looks aside, put anything, superficial aside, these dogs have so much innate instincts and traits in them that it's hardwired into a lot of the genetics of the breed.
Yes.
So I think another thing people always think is with a short-haired breed or a short-coated breed like the Rottweiler, they probably assume that they do not shed. Do they shed?
I think the look says it all right there.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
She's got 5 of them running around her house, so we're gonna get a good answer on this one.
So if they would all tolerate being vacuumed, they would all be vacuumed daily.
Yeah.
So yes, they shed. They have a pretty substantial undercoat.
Okay.
That even in Texas, you can see comes in the winter. And then during their shedding season, which is just ending right now, it's probably been over for about 3 weeks because of the heat, but it's substantial. And depending on the lineage of the dog, you have a different quality of undercoat. So in some of them, it almost looks like wool when you're currying it out, and you have to actually use a curry comb. Okay. And then with some of the other pups, it will just come out in regular fur-like. It won't be kind of curried and together. Mm-hmm. But that just speaks to their ancestral genes.
Yeah. And
the only one that we can speak about their lineage really is Ethos, because I know where he came from. Mm-hmm. And although I know where Fern and Freya, I know their mom, we have no idea about their dad.
Yeah.
And if you look at them next to each other, they have similarities, but I could also say that they weren't even related. Mm-hmm. I mean, they look like Rottweilers, but they don't necessarily look like sibling Rottweilers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of an interesting thing too.
Yeah. Well, I don't look a thing like my 2 sisters, so we do all have the same father. So interesting that they're not big barkers. They are big shedders.
Yes.
I would imagine they need a lot of physical exercise and mental stimulation, being as smart as they are.
Yes. So if you don't give them a job, they will make their own. It could be anything from going into your handbag, if you are the owner, or your briefcase, and taking out items and chewing the items. So we've had passports eaten. Oh. We've had remote controls. Oh. We've had a shoe or two. Those are usually from guests, which is always an interesting / hard conversation. Like, we're happy to buy you new shoes. Yeah. But I think in terms of the activity, so the way we structure the day seems to work for the pack. So everyone has an opportunity to get up and go outside. They have an order that they eat in, and that they go through the door in, and that they get leashed in, and that order never changes. Mm-hmm. It's the hierarchy of the pack, and we set it for them so that there's never been an issue for them vying for position. And what's interesting about that is because that is so ingrained in every activity we do, including the walks, when there's a problem brewing in the pack, or somebody's upset about something, like when the siblings are fighting, we can see it immediately. So it's made our lives as leaders a lot easier. Mm-hmm. So they use the restroom, they eat their breakfast, and then they go for their walk, and their walk on average is about 3.5 miles. Now, with the heat, we sometimes don't take Ethos and Wanda for the whole 3.5. They usually do about 1.5 to 2, but everybody else is going 3.5. And that is on a regular day. Some days were more, some days were less, but that's pretty much the average, is around 3.5. And they're tired, but they're not exhausted.
Yeah.
They're good to have quiet time when they get home. And then they have a midday break, and they play for, depending on the day, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. And then they have some more quiet time, and then they have some more structured play in the afternoon. But it's basically like running a daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what it sounded like. Yeah.
And
I
I guess
mean,
because you have more than one, it's kind of like having more than one child, I would guess, that you have the second one and they can at least play with each other. So you don't have to be their playmate all the time. So
right.
that's beneficial.
Yes, yeah. And we are very, so in this household, we don't play any of the like keep away, tug stuff. And I think that's really important with the breed because of the guard mentality, because of the bully breed. We have made a very specific family rule that they can play tug all day long with each other. They have a tug rope that's almost as long as I am, and they'll pull each other through the yard. It's very, it's like a substantial tug rope. But when a human asks you to drop, that has to be the command. So I'm not interested in pulling you around. If I tell you to drop something out of your mouth, I mean it. I mean it right then. I don't want you to think about it. And I'm sure you've seen some folks like where they're playing back and forth with like none of that. The drop command is super serious to us because they could pick up something that I don't want them to have. And I need to know that they're going to drop it.
Like a snake.
Like a snake.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't even ever pick it up, or we'll just put that out into the universe.
Hopefully they don't even see one.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask a question that I know somebody out there is thinking. So you have 5 Rottweilers and you have a pug. What are you feeding these dogs? I mean, that's got to be
very expensive.
Crazy.
It is. We probably should have stock in their food. We don't, but that actually is a good idea. I should probably write about that, or at least be one of the breed ambassadors for the company.
Yeah.
So interesting. That's a really interesting question. And what my husband always says, one of the biggest surprises about the breed for him was that how sensitive their GI tract is. And we had no idea. So for instance, in our bottle babies, we really struggled with having a good, solid, appropriate movements well into their first year of life. And we tried all of the expensive brands and all of the wheat-free and chicken-free and all of the things. And so finally, this was just out of pure desperation. We tried the Costco brand. For its salmon and brown rice. And I can say with 100% honesty, we get stopped on a weekly basis and asked where we take them to get groomed, like for their coats.
Yeah.
And we don't.
Wow.
So for our older boy, we add some omega-3s because most dry dog foods are deficient. But other than that, and we add sardines because they all like sardines. But other than that, they're eating Costco. We buy the biggest bag. We buy it every 10 days. And Wanda eats the same food as the Rottie, obviously much less.
Yes.
And we soak all of their food in water because when Ethos started to age a little bit, we did do a nutrition consultation. And one of the things that they said that you could do very easily was to boost the nutrition by wetting the food. So we do wet the food. And like I said, we added omegas and we add sardines, but these are treat things. These are not on a daily basis.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny when you asked that, I was imagining, I hope she can get her food at Costco because, I was just thinking you need to get a lot of it. So that's hilarious that it's the Costco brand.
Well, it's hilarious too, because I don't know, have you ever even, like, I've never even looked at Costco. We had a friend who had a similar issue with one of their bull mastiffs, and they said, listen, this really helped their GI tract, and it has pre and probiotics in it. And I thought, well, I mean, as a human, I want to take pre and probiotics, so maybe this will help. And it really did.
Well, that's really good for any of the Rottie parents out there who are having trouble with their dog's food. This might be something that they should check out for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the test sample is you have 5
Yeah.
dogs. I mean, it's not like you have one and, oh, this worked for,
it worked for
you
me.
have 5 and they're all great with it. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a great test sample.
Well, and that begs the question of what kind of health issues does the breed have? So
yeah, so I think I think there are a couple of things from a DNA perspective that, again, if I were not rescuing and I was going to go to a breeder, that I would really want tested. And one of them would be the OFA certification for hips. And so the parents have to be 2 before they can even get certified. And I think because hip dysplasia in larger dogs can be so debilitating and so sad, because you're already, basically you're in love with the animal and there's nothing you can do. And it's so painful. So I would really think if you're looking at the breed and you're serious about the breed, I would take the time to research that, and I would ask all of the questions. What certifications are you doing on the sire and the dame that you're breeding? Because I would want to look at that, and then I would also want to look at the lineage behind them. So has there been any ocular disease? There's some random ocular diseases that happen in Rotties that it's very random and it's very rare, but I would want to know, because good breeders will have that written into their contract that if there are health issues, that they want to be aware of that. And then as far as the only other thing I can say that puppy parents should be aware of and talk with their vets about is, because of the German lineage, they do become more susceptible to parvo, which is really unfortunate and very interesting. So in our house, we vaccinate 1 extra time against parvo, and we wait until that to go out into the ether. And the real reason is we have a friend that is a breeder, and they lost a mother and her pups to parvo that they cannot place exactly where it came in, but they believe that it came in from someone having parvo virus on their shoes and bringing it into the yard because they were looking at pups. And they have a no visitation policy now. So you are welcome to come and stand on the outside of their training facility for hours. This is actually how I fell in love with the breed. I used to go and watch them. And you can stay on the outside of their fence. And as you leave, they have a spray can. And in it, they have some tincture that has bleach and pine sol. And they clean the area that you were on. And the reason they do it is because they lost that mama and her puppies. So we've had a lot of conversations about that, simply because we just said we're just going to vaccinate. And we're not, I would say we're relatively conservative in terms of the vaccine. So we want to do the vaccines that are necessary, but necessary to our dog, not necessary because the vet said all dogs need them. Right. So we with 6 dogs and 2 horses and 2 goats, you can imagine that our vets are our very good friends.
Your vets should be sending you Christmas presents. I mean, yeah, you're keeping them in business, right?
We're very fortunate. We've worked really hard to find vets that align with what we're trying to accomplish. And then also that adhere to kind of the same guidelines of how we've trained them. So that's important too. And I do think that's pertinent to new puppy owners in general, right? Find a vet that you can have a hard conversation with. Because if you're going to be a dog owner, there will be hard conversations.
And we've been through it. It's tough to find a good one. And when you do find a good one, it makes such a difference. So anything else that I'm forgetting about that we need to talk about with this breed? Can you think of anything, Sarah?
No, I love them. And we will always have at least one. I don't think that we'll have 5 ever again.
Oh, come on now. Costco's going to miss you.
Costco should be sending me a Christmas card. That's who should be
Right?
sending,
Yes.
like a gift card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're very active in our local Dallas community in training, because I think that if you're going to be an owner, if you're going to be a leader of a Rottweiler, you are responsible to be a good ambassador for that breed.
Mhm.
It's really important that you realize you're going to be in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
So even if it's the other dog's fault, it's always going to fall on the fault of the Rottweiler.
And do you notice when you're out with your dogs that people will move to the other side of the road, or that they get afraid?
So they used to. And that is actually, if you look at our Instagram page, that is part of the reason they started modeling for all the companies, which, by the way, took us quite a long time to find a company that would want to work with Rottweilers, which is so sad. Yeah, it probably took us 8 months. And now we have established folks we are so lucky to have. But before we found them, there were very much breed stigmas around, we don't want Rottweilers as models. But the whole idea behind, like, all of our girls wear pearls and they wear them all the time. It's to help the general public realize, like, yes, they are big, powerful breeds, and no one in this house is ever going to deny that. But they're also really well trained. And we take that really seriously.
Yeah.
So we want you to see the best of the best in the breed, knowing that they're dogs and that they're going to make mistakes, but also that they have really good leadership.
Yep.
So if they make a mistake, we'll redirect them.
Well, you are an amazing ambassador for this breed. And just listening to how you talk about the structure, the training, it's very apparent that you take it seriously. And, we wish all dog parents did that, because we know, like you said, at the end of the day, if something, God forbid, happens, it's always blamed on the dogs, right? It's never blamed on the humans for doing something stupid or irresponsible or whatever. And couple that with a breed that has been, maligned for many, many years. I think Chihuahuas actually are the most bitey dog. And
they are.
In
the census, the last census that was published, they're the #1 bites. Now Rotties are up there, okay, but they're in the, I believe the last one that I looked at, they're in the top 10, but they're lower on the list. And we have a coloring book, right, that we wrote, and we really wrote it for parents, and we used the Rottweilers to help little kids understand that just because we want to say hello to a dog doesn't mean a dog wants to say hello to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you impose your human need on an animal, you're going to get what you get from that. And we have come so far with a pendulum swing to this idea that it's always the dog or the horse or the pig or whatever animal. It's their fault and it's not the humans, that we have to really think about that, I think, societally, because we've gotten away from any type of ownership, and you're dealing with an animal.
Yep. That has probably already alerted you, 5 ways non-verbally and maybe even verbally, but you don't understand what to look for. And, it's like we've talked before. Would you want somebody like getting up in your face and being like, "Hey, how are you?" No, and you can't assume that every dog wants that, no matter what breed they are. It could be a golden retriever. It may not want you in its space. And
that's okay. And I think that's what you're hearing me say, is that not only have we shifted to this idea that all dogs have to like all the human attention all the time, we've made it not okay for a dog to walk away if the human isn't done. And so a dog walking away is a gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like if you're in an interaction with a human and they walk away and you're like, "Oh, we're done." Okay, we're done. Yeah. I mean, I think instead of looking at what's wrong with the situation, we can look at it from a lens of, okay, what that animal just said something. I'm not really sure what it said. It's not in my language, but I'm going to go with it. Yeah. And it walked away. So instead of following it and imposing that human will on it, let's just let it walk away.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
And as parents, I think that is the one of the biggest things that they could be teaching their children is respect of animals and respecting those boundaries, because I think that if we can teach young people, we can really make a difference. The next generations can do better. So gosh, it's been such a treat. I think we could talk for hours because you are just so interesting, and I can tell that you guys love this breed and the pug. We will we don't want to leave Wanda feeling out. Well, she thinks she's a Rottweiler anyway, I'm sure. So
she has no idea. She's fine.
She's like, I guess my parents were just small. But for everybody that is listening and watching, please go follow Spoiled Rotties on Instagram. And where else can we find you guys?
So we're on Facebook also on Spoiled Rotties.
Awesome.
Those are our two social media platforms.
And what about the coloring book? Where can people get that?
They can shoot us a DM. I'm happy to do it. One of the other things that we've done in the past is every quarter we do a raffle to adopt a classroom. So in it, you get the coloring books and crayons for your classroom. And the only thing that we ask is that we get some pictures back of the colors, the pages that you color. Oh. And because we love to see the last page of it is show us your favorite dog, and they get to draw their own dog. Yeah, so we'll do that again. We haven't done it this quarter, so we'll probably do it next week since we're ending the quarter. But yes, we did it in Q1.
That's awesome. Great. I love that. And oh gosh, I had a thought and it just went out of my head. But I love that. I love you guys. I love that Scarlett wore her little red sweater at the Christmas. Like I have that visual in my mind with the Christmas cookies. And do you want to give a shout out to any rescue groups before we close out?
So Arati Rescue Inc. is the group that we are partnered with in terms of Dallas. That's where all of our Aratis are from. And people ask us if we breed, if we rescue, where did our dogs can we have one? I mean, people are crazy. And so we always refer them to them. They're on Facebook. They're not on Instagram. And they're very active in both Texas and Nevada. The truth is that if you're looking to rescue Rottweilers, there are a plethora of them in the local shelters, which is super unfortunate. Now, I can't speak to their genetics, but I can tell you, if you are interested in Rottweilers, if you have a good training resource, I wouldn't be afraid of that. But I would have my training resource lined up before I brought a big Rottie home.
Yeah. Yeah. Sense. And you should be interested in learning how to train if you don't already know how.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. And I think we've both learned a lot today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Me too.
Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of dogs to care for.
Yeah. When I asked the question and I know she answered it, but can you imagine how much she is spending on food?
Yeah. Food alone, not to mention, vet bills and toys and accoutrement. So yeah, it's a lot, but great rescue stories. Sarah is definitely a very well-versed woman when it comes to dog training. And she is a rescue advocate. So just a real great advocate for the breed. I really was impressed by just her depth of knowledge with the breed and the training and how to go about training these dogs properly. So it was a great, very informative interview.
My favorite thing is, and it's so funny because I can visualize it in my head, is this pug walking around thinking it's a big, 125-pound Rottweiler. It's just it's cool.
You guys have to check out the Spoiled Rottie's Instagram page and social media in general. These are just beautiful dogs that are having the time of their lives. They're in Dallas, Texas, and they're just beautiful. And of course, a pug that thinks she's a Rottweiler.
Yeah, exactly. So it's shout out time.
Time for our audience shout out. All right. So This is our first audience shout out, and we would like to give a shout out to Adam and Laura. We're not going to use last names just to keep things private for everyone. But Adam and Laura sadly recently lost their dog Millie, and they actually emailed us thanking us for the episode on caring for your senior dog. So Adam had reached out to us after that episode, and it was so nice to hear from him. And we exchanged emails and didn't hear from him for a little while. And unfortunately, that was because they did end up having to put Millie down, but just sent the sweetest email. And we know that Adam and Laura are official dog nerds because they are like us. They cherish their dogs. It was a very hard time for them. So thank you, Adam and Laura, for listening or watching or both. And we will continue to give shout outs to our listeners and viewers as we go forward. So we really, really love hearing from you guys. You can find us everywhere on social media at Dog Nerd Show. Drop us a line, dognerdshow@gmail.com. And I think you're going to ask them to like, subscribe, and
yeah, there's a thumb down there. There's a thumbs up. There's a thumbs down. Just ignore that one. The thumbs up one is the one you want.
Yeah.
You click on that one, then you can go over to the right a little bit, and there's a subscribe button. Click on that subscribe button, and we make it so easy for you here at the YouTubes that you hit this little bell, and every time we do a video, you get a notification.
Yeah, so you never have to miss another episode.
And it costs nothing to do that.
It's free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, listen, guys, we do this for you. We love it. We love doing these. And so when you subscribe, whether it's to our podcast or to our YouTube, it means the world to us. We really do thank you for inspiring us and helping us keep this show going.
Absolutely. And thank you for everyone who comments. We love hearing from you. And we'd love to hear what you thought about this interview. And if you are a Rottie parent, please let us know all about your beautiful dogs.
Well, until next time, folks, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.